They were in Egypt so long until Egypt became a part of them. They became a part of Egypt. Even though God had given them a promise 430 years before and had promised Abraham and had a covenant relationship with Abraham, renewed it with Isaac, brought it to fruition through Jacob. Yet for 430 years they were in Egypt. Anytime you stay in something too long, you have to be careful, because anytime you're in something too long, it can become a part of you. And not only are you in it, but it's in you. And when something is in you, if you want to get it out, you got to cut the cord. You cannot sit around and allow stuff that you're in to get in you. You can be in prison, but as long as prison don't get in you, you can make it. You can be in trouble, but as long as trouble don't get in you, you can survive. Oh, I can't get no help around here. I don't care what happens to you, as long as you don't let it get in your spirit, you can handle it. But when that thing gets in your spirit and start messing with your sleep and start messing with your relationship with God, and keeps you from giving God praise and keep you from giving him worship and keep your prayer life from going through like it ought to, something got to give. Anything that stops you from praying, you don't need to be a part of, because everything that's good to you ain't good for you. Everything that you go through, the devil wants to pull you down with it. But once the thing gets in your spirit and it's stopping you from praying, I don't care what it is, I don't care who it is. If you're in a relationship with somebody and you can't pray like you ought to, if you know somebody that's your friend and you can't pray like you ought to, I don't care if they're your bosom buddy and you can't get a prayer through. I don't care if they're your brother or your sister. If they're stopping you from giving God some glory, my brother and sister, if you want to survive, you gotta cut the cord. Oh, I can't get no help here. Look at somebody and say, cut the cord. Everybody don't want to cut the cord because your flesh enjoys what it's in, but your spirit is saying, help, let me out of here. I can't give God praise like I ought to, but your flesh is saying, I'm enjoying it, but your spirit is saying, get me out of it, get me out of it. I got to have a relationship with God because your soul is in trouble. And if you want your soul to be satisfied and your spirit to be renewed, you got to cut the cord. I don't care how bad it feels, so you cut it. Some relationships you got to cut. There's some friends you got to cut. Lord, there's some relatives you got to. Oh, help me, Holy Ghost. I better say that again. There's some friends you got to. There's some relationships you got to. If you want to be right with God, you got to. Touch 3 people, say cut, cut, cut. I know you want to hold on to them because emotionally they're good to you. You feel good with them, but they ain't no good for you. My God, they gossip too much. They loose me and let me go. Don't tighten up on me now. They talk about folk too much, and while you trying to reach heaven, they want to be so carnal until you can't get in God where you want to. And the hell you going through, you need a spiritual relationship with God, and your relationship with God is more important than your natural relationship with your friends. Some friends you gotta cut. Anybody that don't want to pray like you want to pray, cut them. Lord, I can't get much help here. Anybody that want to seek God like you do, you got to cut them. You got to hang with folk that's in your van. You got to hang with folk that want to reach God like you do. You got to be with people that know how to get a prayer through. You can't hang around folk that's always pulling on your spirit. And every time you need a touch, you need a breakthrough, you can't get it because you're boxed